Good afternoon, one and all, and welcome to episode 222 of Love at First Scent with me, Persolaise, coming to you live from YouTube. And I just need to do the usual stuff here and make sure that everything is coming through loud and clear. Seems to be fine. So, housekeeping things out of the way. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please consider doing so. Please click on the little bell so that you get notifications of new videos. And please do consider supporting my work on Ko-fi. You will find the information on that in the video description below a little while after the end of this broadcast. If you're watching live or you're watching the recording, you're very welcome. Please feel free to leave a comment and ask a question. I usually get round to all of them in due course. And first comment goes to Indonesia, with Fahmi saying, "Good evening from Indonesia, Papa P." Fahmi, stay around for the second video because I suspect you may have a lot to say about the second video in the live stream that we're doing. Ashvina says, this is only... So, hang on, start again. There is only one first time on Persolaise. So I guess this is your first time? You're very welcome. Yura saying, hello, Love, Terre, EDT and Parfum, also episode 222, absolutely. Dialing in from Singapore, says Ashvina, and this is sublime. You're very, very welcome. How are things out there in Singapore? We had a nice morning here in the south of England, but then now it's become overcast and cloudy. Yo, says Stephen, love Terre d'Hermes, but don't own it. Really need to pull the trigger. Okay, so this is the plan for today for those planning to stick around for the lives. We're going to do this fairly quickly because we need to mark the 15th anniversary of Terre in some way. Then we're going to take a 2-minute break and we're going to come back with a best of video, a top 10, to which Terre may be relevant. So I won't say any more until we get to the second video, but obviously if you're watching the recording, then none of this matters to you, except that I will probably link to both videos from both videos today because they are relevant to each other. So, here we go. Oh, Ashvina's saying hot and humid, Shalimar weather. Yeah, that sounds like the sort of weather I'd be expecting in Singapore. Please, please, please tell me what your personal Terre stories are, what your experiences of Terre are. As a follower very, very kindly pointed out to me a little while ago, the original Eau de Toilette of Terre was released in 2006. Where Stephen... Just seen the comment. If you don't know what I'm talking about, check out the comment that Stephen Tampin has just posted. What was I saying? Right, which of course means that it is now 15 years old. The EDT came out in 2006, and I believe the Parfum version came out 3 years later, I think in 2009. And it is, without any question, one of the most successful releases of the 21st century, and probably in some markets, the most successful release aimed at masculines. So while we're talking, we should spray it. This is the EDT. This is they went through a phase. I don't think they did it this year, but that may be because of complications to do with the pandemic, etc. They went through a phase of doing limited edition bottles of the Parfum, of the EDT. This is one of the limited edition EDTs that came out maybe 3 years ago. Always top design decisions at Hermes. So let us spray it, and we will have a little bit of a chat about what makes Terre special. Whenever I smell Terre, I think I don't wear it enough. I don't know why I don't wear it as much as I should. The one of the sort of downsides, although this is hardly a downside, this is like a real sort of first world problem, but one of the downsides of doing this, doing this work that I do, is that I don't actually have a huge amount of time or many opportunities to wear the perfumes that I just genuinely personally love for myself. Sometimes I force myself to do it almost to kind of recalibrate my nose, recalibrate my sensibilities and think, oh yes, I do really love this one, and this is what makes a wonderful perfume, and this is the pleasure I get out of wearing fragrances that I enjoy. Because a lot of the time I'm actually wearing things that I'm going to talk about, new releases. But Terre is always the one that when I smell it, number one, a lot of the time I recognize it, but also, interestingly, tellingly, there are quite a few times when I don't recognize it, and I have one of those frustrating experiences, which I'm sure you've had as well, where I think, I know this one, I know this one, I know this one, and then as somebody says, oh, it's Terre, and I think, oh God, of course it is. Because it achieves this very, very interesting feat, which I think is one reason why it's been so successful as a masculine scent. It achieves this interesting feat of being very, very distinctive. It has got a very distinctive and unique signature, and yet it also somehow manages to be quite discreet and to melt into the background. And it ticks a lot of very difficult to tick boxes for masculine perfumery, because generally speaking, I know that may not apply to a lot of the men who seek out a channel like this one or read a blog like mine, but generally speaking, men like to smell sophisticated and suave, and they like to maybe stand out from the crowd a little bit, but not in a shouty way that really sets them apart from everybody else and puts them at a remove. Ashvina says Persolaise needs its own subreddit, gets mentioned on fragrance quite often. Ooh, not now because we'll get sidetracked, but maybe somebody, I think I know what that means, but I'm not sure because I haven't delved into the world of Reddit. So somebody afterwards, or maybe leave a comment about it now and I'll read it later. Gets mentioned on Reddit fragrance quite. I didn't know that. I didn't. Somebody send me a link. Is that a good thing? So see, I'm smelling the EDT now, and I'm thinking, gosh, this really, really is still so good. It really smells like it was just made yesterday. But let's talk about it in a bit more detail. You can think of it as a vetiver perfume. You could think of it as a cedar perfume, but you could also think of it, if you want to get really technical, you could think of it as an ISOE super perfume. And I saw somebody, Woozy, has just said, is it true that it's 85% ISOE super? I don't know if it's true that it's 85%, but I'm pretty sure that it's a lot of ISOE super. Now, Jean-Claude Ellena, we should say, who made it, was he the in-house perfumer at Hermes at the time? Oh, somebody look that up, because I don't think he was in-house then, was he? When did he become in-house perfumer? Somebody check it out and let us know. I should have checked that before starting the video. He loves ISOE super. A lot of modern perfumers do. ISOE super is like the sort of magic ingredient that is present in huge, huge quantities in tons of modern perfumes, because it does lots of interesting things. It smooths out rough edges. There you go. Woozy says JC loves ISOE super. He used a lot in Poivre Samarcand. It blends materials really well. It adds tremendous diffusiveness. Rich Mitch saying in-house from the early 2000s. Oh, okay. Gosh, as early as that? I thought it was later. So I guess he was in-house when he made this. And what makes Terre special, first of all, beautiful, sparkling opening note of grapefruit, and it's no coincidence that it's grapefruit because the sulfurous aspect of grapefruit links very well with vetiver, which comes later. Then it moves to, for me, a really interesting fruity incense note, not unlike the effect that you get in Jean-Claude Ellena's own Jardin sur le Nil. In fact, you could think of that as being a fruitier, less vetiver heavy version of Terre. You can think of Terre as being X version of lots of things. You know, if you think back earlier to something that Jean-Claude Ellena made for Cartier, if you think of Declaration, that also shares a lot with Terre. You can think of Declaration as being a spicier, more cardamom heavy, less vetiver heavy version of Terre. But what do all of these things have in common? I think what they have in common is a trick that Ellena made his own, taking woody materials, resinous materials, and making them extremely, surprisingly, unexpectedly translucent, transparent, radiant, hesperidic, light, and yet full of presence. And again, that sort of ticks another ideal perfume for a man box, if we're being stereotypical, because it is woody, it is resinous, it is balsamic, and yet it never ever comes across as anything other than filled with air. I could go on and on about this one because it is such an important milestone of 21st century perfumery, but I won't make this video terribly long because the next video is going to be a long one, and I want to talk a little. I want to see some of the comments you've made before I mention some of the other versions of Terre. So I promise I will read all of these after the video's over. But what are some people saying? Scented Moment saying, it wasn't a fragrance that I loved at first sniff. That dirty orange was a bit off to me, but now I really like it. I like the EDT and the Eau Fraiche version. Thanks for mentioning that, because I think that's the best flanker, the Eau Fraiche, that was also done by Ellena. Really, really beautiful handling of the grapefruit in that one. Michael Russell saying, I love hate Terre. I'd always been a guy who owned 1 or 2 bottles, and then I bought a bottle of Terre 5 years ago, and it kicked off something, and now I own 60 or so bottles. You mean 60 bottles of other stuff, right? It's a gateway drug fragrance. You may well be right. You may well be right. Yura saying, Isoe Super is pretty much in everything, like Hedione. Bloody thing has cost me a fortune now, says Michael Russell. Yura saying, Isoe Super is lovely. Joanna saying, hello everyone from sunny Crystal Palace. Late apologies, but happy to catch a live broadcast again. You're very, very welcome. And good point, Yura, saying Isoe Super also does not smell synthetic in that unconvincing, brash, rough way. You're absolutely right. If it smells of anything, it smells of cedar. It smells of quite a convincing cedar, and yet it also has a kind of quiet, haunting quality to it. Woozy saying, do you think Akigala wood will become the new Isoe? Oh, I hope not. I mean, I think it should carry on being used, but I hope it doesn't become that ubiquitous. And it's a lot more present and stronger than Isoe Super. So then a few years later, we had the Parfum. And I'm still in kind of two minds. There are some days where I think, no, the Parfum is the superior one. And there are some days where I think it's the EDT. And I kind of waver a little bit like that as well with Voyage d'Hermes, which also came out in an EDT and a Parfum. Yeah, this seems, the Parfum seems to go stronger. I mean, at the moment I'm smelling it and it's making me think a little bit more of Sycamore than it would normally do, Chanel Sycamore. Because a sandalwood note seems to be coming through, and the vetiver is coming through as being a little bit swampier, and we may well be talking about that in a few minutes. And as I say, the Eau Très Fraîche is an interesting one. And also I think it's interesting to consider the flankers where maybe things have gone a little bit wrong, because Hermès recently also did a more obviously vetiver heavy flanker of Terre. Was it called Eau de Vetiver or something like that? It's not that old at all. And there I think you can see how if the balance is pushed too far in the way of the vetiver, things are not quite as radiant and translucent and beautiful and attractive as they are in the original. Oh, intense, says Woozy. Thanks very much. And we should also mention that Terre was a little bit of a design triumph for Hermès. I mean, they tend not to get design things wrong, but they were spot on with this bottle, you know, with the H at the base, with the neat little satisfying cap mechanism, the weight of the bottle, and also the name. Apparently the story goes that when he was working on it, Jean-Claude Ellena had as his guiding force a photograph of a stake in the ground. So I don't know. I don't know if at that stage he already knew that the perfume he was working on was going to be called Terre. But everything to do with the name, with the advertising campaign, with the colours, just works because there is something beautifully mineralic about it. And I think that comes from the fact that it really doesn't seem to use a lot of musks, and it relies in the base notes on the vetiver, on the smoky, licorice, earthy qualities of vetiver. So it does really feel like you see in a lot of the Terre adverts, like putting your hands into some beautiful terracotta coloured earth and letting all of that earth slip through your fingers. Woozy says, I don't like how you can press the trigger regardless of the cap position. Oh, I'd never thought of that. I hadn't actually thought of that. Well, nobody's perfect, right? Eau Fraiche is going to be discontinued, says Scented Moments. I didn't know that. It's their best flanker. So there we go. 15 years of Terre easily one of the best releases of the 21st century, and it would have to be up there if you had to compile a list of the best mainstream masculines of the 21st century. It would have to be in the top 5, I would imagine. So thanks very much for watching this one. But if you are watching the live, and if you're able to stick around for a few more minutes, you may want to come back, because we're going to do a top 10, which may feature Terre again. See you in a bit. Bye.